Today, we're diving into a story that, even though it's thousands of years old, honestly reads like a modern-day case study in leadership and crisis management. It's the story of one guy, Nehemiah, and his absolutely audacious mission to rebuild not just a wall, but the very heart of a nation. And it all kicks off with one single crushing report.
So, it all starts with this gut punch of a message. News travels all the way from Judah to Persia, and the words are just devastating. The wall, the very symbol of security and identity for Jerusalem, is a pile of rubble. The gates burned to the ground. The people are in great trouble and shame. This one sentence just cranks the stakes up to 11, right from the get-go. And who's the person hearing this news? Not some general on the ground, but Nehemiah. And get this, he's the cupbearer to the king of Persia, Artaxerxes. This is a big deal. It's a position of huge trust, huge comfort. He's living in the palace, he has the king's ear, but his heart is clearly hundreds of miles away with his people. The contrast couldn't be more stark. A man in a safe, secure palace, hearing that his home has no security at all.
So what's his first move after hearing this catastrophic news? Does he start drafting a battle plan? Does he form a committee? Nope. His first move, the thing that becomes the foundation for this entire mission, it's quiet. It starts with prayer. What's so amazing here is that Nehemiah's prayer isn't just an emotional cry for help. It's practically a masterclass in how to lead. It follows this really clear four-step structure. First, he starts with praise, establishing respect. Then, he takes ownership through confession, no finger-pointing. Third, he reminds God of his own promises, grounding his request in their shared history. And only then, after all that, does he make his very specific ask, give me favor with the king. It's a blueprint any leader could learn a ton from.
All right, so with that spiritual groundwork laid, Nehemiah's ready to make his move. But this is the moment of truth, right? This is where his private faith has to survive a very public, very high-stakes test. His whole plan hinges on getting a yes from the most powerful man he knows.
And then it happens. The king notices. He sees the sadness on Nehemiah's face. Now, you have to understand, this is a dangerous moment. In the Persian court, looking sad in front of the king could imply you're unhappy with his reign, or worse. Your whole job is to make sure the king is happy and safe, not to be a downer. So this simple question is just loaded with tension.
Nehemiah's reaction, it's so real, so human. He's not some action hero without a pulse. He straight up admits, I was full of fear. He knows exactly what's on the line, his job, his reputation, maybe even his life. It all hangs on what he says next. This honesty just makes his courage shine even brighter. So he says a quick, silent prayer and goes for it. And just listen to how he phrases this. It's brilliant. He doesn't say, let me go rebuild the great city of Jerusalem, which might sound way too political. Instead, he calls it the town where my fathers are at rest. It's a personal, emotional appeal to family honor, something any ruler could get behind. It's respectful, it's humble, but man, is it bold.
And this just shows us Nehemiah isn't just a man of deep faith. He's also a world-class project manager. He's not just asking for permission. He comes with a fully baked plan. He's thought about the risks of travel and needs official letters. That's stakeholder management 101. He's figured out his supply chain, right down to the guy in charge, Asaph, and the raw materials he needs, timber. The entire project was scoped out before he even opened his mouth. So he's got the king's blessing, he's got the resources. You'd think the hard part's over, right? Well, not even close. It was just getting started. Nehemiah's next huge challenge would come from opposition right there on the ground, people who did not want to see Jerusalem get back on its feet.
And his first move in Jerusalem is just classic Nehemiah. He doesn't show up and hold a big press conference. Instead, he goes out at night, in secret, with just a few guys, to see the damage with his own two eyes. He has to get a real sense of the broken walls and burned gates before he can ask a single person to help him fix it. This is leadership from the front, getting your boots muddy.
So after seeing the damage, he rallies the people and they're immediately on board. They say, let's get to work. But just as fast, the opposition shows up. Meet the villains of our story, Sanballat and Tobiah. And notice why they're mad. They are greatly troubled that someone has actually come to help the people of Israel. The battle lines are officially drawn. And these guys, they throw everything they've got at Nehemiah. First, they try ridicule, making jokes about how weak the wall is. When that doesn't work, the threats get physical. They start plotting a military attack. Then, it gets personal. They launch a smear campaign, spreading lies that Nehemiah is planning a rebellion. They even hire insiders, false prophets, to try and scare him from within. It was a relentless, all-out assault. 4 different times, his enemies try to trick him, to lure him away from the wall for a meeting. And 4 times, Nehemiah sends back this iconic reply. It's one of the greatest statements of focused leadership you will ever hear. He just refuses to get distracted. He knows his mission, and nothing is going to pull him away from it. So facing this constant threat of attack, Nehemiah comes up with this brilliant and just powerful solution. The work doesn't stop, no way. Instead, the people adapt. They become worker soldiers. One hand holds a trowel to build the future, and the other holds a spear to defend it. What a powerful picture of resilience. So, after all the mockery, all the threats, the constant danger, how long did this massive project take? 52 days. Yeah, just let that sink in for a second. Less than 2 months to rebuild the entire defensive wall of a city. The speed is just mind-blowing. It's a huge testament to the people's unified spirit and Nehemiah's incredible leadership. But here's the really crucial point. The project was never just about rocks and mortar. The wall wasn't the ultimate goal, it was the means to an end. The true purpose was way bigger, to rebuild the spirit, the faith, and the very identity of the people. And this scene shows that purpose in bright, vivid color. With the city finally secure, the whole community gathers together. And for the first time in a very long time, Ezra the scribe stands up and reads from their sacred text, the Law of Moses, for hours. The physical security of the wall made this spiritual renewal possible. The people's reaction is just so powerful. At first, hearing the words of the law, they weep, probably realizing just how far they drifted. But then Nehemiah and Ezra tell them, no, today is not for mourning, it's for understanding. And as that understanding dawns on them, their sorrow literally turns into great joy, because their heritage, their story, had finally been made clear to them again. And this right here becomes the core message. It's this idea that their true defense, their real strong place, wasn't the new wall they just built. It was the joy that came from reconnecting with God. The wall gives them security, for sure, but joy gives them strength. But, a great leader's work is never truly done. Years later, after another stint serving the king in Persia, Nehemiah comes back to Jerusalem, and he finds that some of the old problems have started creeping back in. And the to-do list is pretty shocking. His old nemesis, Tobiah, had somehow been given a room inside the temple. The religious leaders weren't being supported, people were doing business on the Sabbath, and they were compromising their identity by marrying into foreign nations. Nehemiah's response is swift. He physically throws Tobiah's stuff out, enforces the Sabbath, and confronts the people head-on. It shows his leadership was always about the long-term health of the nation, not just a one-and-done building project. And all of this leaves us with this one big thought. Nehemiah's story really forces us to ask a bigger question. It shows us that restoring a community is so much more than just putting up buildings. It takes a clear vision, unshakable faith, brilliant planning, and the guts to fight for what matters, not just once, but over and over again. So, what does it truly take to rebuild a people? Well, the answer seems to be somewhere between a trowel and a spear, between a quiet prayer and a very bold plan.